You know that classic sci-fi dream of AI? Where machines don't just crunch numbers, but truly get it, understand information like we do. Well, turns out that's a whole lot harder than we thought.
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher.
But that's exactly what we're digging into today, and get this, with someone who lives in both worlds, Kim Stachenfeld, researcher at Google DeepMind and Columbia University.
Talk about bridging the gap, right? And speaking of DeepMind, especially their early days, they were laser focused on this huge goal, solving intelligence.
Not just building fancy algorithms, but cracking the code of what makes intelligence intelligent.
Exactly.
And we're pulling from this awesome conversation she had on the Brain-Inspired podcast, episode 193, with Paul Middlebrooks.
Enhancing neuroscience and AI, right?
That's the one. And one of the big takeaways for me was how DeepMind's whole approach has shifted. They started with this neuroscience-inspired model for AI, but now it's all about scale.
Bigger is better, right? More data, more computing power, bigger models.
Right. But here's the thing. That shift to scale, it's led to these crazy, powerful AI models that honestly kind of freak some people out. The black box problem.
Because they're so good at predicting things, but figuring out how they work, good luck with that.
It's like having this magic wand that can tell the future, but you have zero clue how it does it.
Exactly.
And for Kim, with her neuroscience background, that lack of interpretability, it's a huge deal. She's saying if we really want to use AI to understand the brain, we can't just keep throwing data at a black box and hope for the best.
It's got to be about more than just brute force, right?
Yeah.
The brain itself, it has this elegance, this structure.
Right. And that's where I think the whole industry versus academia thing comes in.
Yeah.
Because Kim talks about how industry, it's amazing at focusing resources, getting things done, but
It works best when the research lines up with what the company wants, right?
yeah. But what about those big fundamental questions, the ones that might not have a clear practical application or make money right away? That's where places like Columbia, with their academic freedom, they can really shine.
Absolutely. Because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from following the curiosity, not just chasing the next product launch.
Exactly. It's like if we only focused on research that had an immediate payoff, who knows what amazing discoveries we'd miss out on. And Kim, she's not just talking the talk. She's really pushing for this deeper understanding in her own research.
Yeah, she's not content with just building AI that can, predict stuff. She wants models that can actually explain things.
Right, crack the code instead of just reading the output.
Totally. She says she wants to move beyond just imitating systems and get to a place where we truly understand them. And for the brain, I think a big part of that is, remembering it's not just this jumble of neurons, right?
There's a method to the madness.
Exactly. There's structure, hierarchy, these intricate connections that have been fine-tuned over, millions of years of evolution.
So it's about bringing that structure into our AI models, not just data, but baking in some of that inherent, elegance of the brain.
Exactly. It's imagine trying to understand a symphony, but you're only allowed to look at the frequencies of each note.
You'd miss the whole point.
Totally. You might be able to predict which note comes next, but you wouldn't get the melody, the rhythm, the harmony, the things that make it music, And I think it's the same with the brain. We need that bigger picture.
And this is where it gets really interesting because Kim, she makes this distinction between prediction and understanding. And those sound similar, but
yeah, they're not the same.
Right.
It's like that fascinating case of H&M. Remember him? He could have conversations, engage with you right there in the moment, even though he couldn't form new memories.
Right. So even without being able to store those new experiences, he could still participate. There was understanding there.
Exactly. And Kim uses that as a comparison to some of these big language models we have now. Amazing at predicting the next word, carrying on a conversation. But is there that deeper level of understanding, that connection to past experiences, future consequences?
It really makes you think, right? Just because a machine can write a poem doesn't mean it gets the meaning behind the words.
Exactly. It challenges that whole idea of, what does it even mean for something to be intelligent? Are we measuring it the right way, even in ourselves? Kim argues that to really move forward, we got to start asking different questions, not just what the brain is doing, but why.
And it's funny, she even talks about how this whole question of framing the right research questions, it hit her when she was writing her bio for the Columbia website.
Oh man, I feel that. Trying to sum up your whole life's work in a paragraph.
Right. But for her, it was more than just finding the right words. It was about this fundamental challenge in neuroscience, in AI. Are we even asking the right questions in the first place?
And if not, where do we even start? It's like we're trying to put together a puzzle, but we don't know what the picture's supposed to be. And this is where Kim's work takes this really unexpected turn. Remember how we were talking about why versus what the brain is doing? Well, that led her to this whole other field, turbulence.
Wait, like in the air? Water? What does that have to do with the brain?
I know, it sounds like a leap, but stick with me. She was working on these simulations to predict chaotic fluid flows.
This is where I got to admit I'm struggling to keep up.
It's definitely a brain twister.
So we've got Kim working on predicting these chaotic fluid flows. How does that even connect back to, well, anything to do with the brain?
Well, think about it. The brain, with billions of neurons all firing, interacting, it's kind of like that fluid flow, right? Incredibly complex, always changing.
So there are similarities.
Kim started to see them between the patterns of brain activity and, yeah, the kind of swirling, unpredictable nature of turbulence. She even uses this phrase, cascade turbulence. Cascade turbulence. Okay, now you're just using big words to sound smart.
No, but really, picture this. A cascade of waterfalls, right? Each level is affected by the one above it, the one below it. This constant interplay, creating these intricate patterns. Beautiful, but almost impossible to predict exactly.
Okay, I kind of see where you're going with this.
Kim sees that same cascading effect in how the electrical activity in the brain works, like information flowing, interacting, influencing this constant dynamic dance. So hold on. She's not saying our brains are literally full of like swirling liquid, right?
No, no, not at all. It's more like taking the models and the principles from fluid dynamics and using that as a new way of looking at the brain's complexity, finding these unexpected connections, these underlying principles that might apply in totally different areas.
So sometimes to understand something as complex as the brain, you got to look at it from a totally different angle, even if it seems kind of out there at first.
Exactly. And that's what I love about Kim's work. She's not afraid to ask the big, weird questions, even if they lead to unexpected places. And that's what we've got to do too, right? If we really want to unlock the mysteries of intelligence, consciousness, the whole shebang, it's not just about building bigger AI. It's about asking those deeper questions, embracing the unknown, just like Kim Stachenfeld is doing. And who knows what amazing discoveries are waiting for us just around the corner.